It's Mayday, everybody. How are you doing? Wherever you are and watching this, it's really been cool the last little bit. I've received messages from folks in the United Kingdom and people that are watching the replay in Australia. It's 5 a.m. in Australia right now, so we don't have a huge viewing audience over there, but it's just been really cool to get all that information. Charles, again, hello. First in wins. Yes, your prize, a 2020 Cadillac windshield, wiper, blade, box, label. So congratulations on that. Oh, man, here we go. It is Friday. And isn't it crazy how the days are all running together? But that's exactly what they're doing. And we're going to be talking about a couple things here today. Governor Holcomb is on, evidently, back in Indiana. So I'll be interested to hear what he has to say, Talene. It's kind of interesting in that I saw a fascinating post on social media about, for the first time, we've got governors not listening to the president and mayors not listening to governors. And it's just crazy what's happening now. So unique and so amazing. Happy May Day to you, Ted. And that's what we're talking about today is about May Day. Kind of interesting things that we got going on there. Hi, Phil. Good to see you today. So today is May Day, and it's kind of interesting how different people are celebrating. It's so unique here on May Day. And so to me, are you this way? Every time I think of May Day, I'm typically thinking of a bad movie from the 50s where a pilot is in trouble shouting "Mayday, Mayday" into the microphone as the plane is bouncing along, or it's something that that shows that times are tough or something's going to happen. So I typically think of May Day as being a time of emergency, and here we are in quarantine. So we're going to talk today about a couple things about May Day. Where did the distress call come from? And also what May Day means in history and why. There's an interesting thing about why May Day was never celebrated in the United States like it was celebrated in other parts of the world. And you'll be interested in that because it's something very, very different. So a little bit today on May Day and what May Day is and where it came from and why all that goes on. But we'll be talking about that on today's program. I'm really, really glad that you're here. Thanks. Let's catch up here a little bit. Ken Walls, man, you were so great last night talking on your program and everything else, and appreciate the help that you're giving. But really, really cool. Thanks, Ken. And by the way, as you see on the little crawl that goes on down here, Ken and Glenn Morshower, Agent Aaron Pierce from 24 and the Transformer movies, and now regularly seen on The Resident on Fox. Ken and Glenn and I have a show called The Ken and Glenn Show with a guy named Scott, Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. Please join us. Charles says, feeling better than Picasso looked at it. I posted it. I saw this thing and I had to repost it. Somebody that I follow on Instagram, and she follows me, Elizabeth Smith, posted this hilarious thing. And Picasso did self-portraits. What was it, Charles? Like at 20, at 50, and 80. And it was as he was becoming less of a realist in his paintings, because at 20, it's a realistic painting. And at 50, it's an impressionist painting. And at 80 or 90, whatever it was, it's a cubist painting. It doesn't even look like a human being. And just the line underneath it goes, Picasso did not age well. It's really funny. So yeah, that's exactly right, Charles. Oh, let's see. In Indiana, there's 5-step opening 100% by the 4th of July for the most part. Going to be very interesting to see what happens there. That's for sure. Hey, Scott, I enjoy watching your live programs and your live messages that you bring that are so inspiring and so interesting as well. So thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Happy Friday to you too. Randall Reeder is in the house. Mayday was special. in the 50s, all the grade schools in our county went to town and paraded down Main Street. Yeah, a big Mayday festival happened in many communities. I don't hear much about that. And well, obviously this year for certain, but I don't hear much about that anymore. So where did Mayday, as we think of it, from the movies and from all that, where did that come from? And I did a little research here and found that it got its start as an international distress call, right? Because you think of if the plane's going down, that's what the pilot shouts, or if your boat's about to sink, you're shouting Mayday, Mayday. It started out as an international distress call in 1923. It was made as the official global distress call in 1948, which would explain why those movies of the 50s always have this pilot in the black and white movie shouting Mayday, Mayday. It was the idea of someone named Frederick Monkford, who was a senior radio officer at the Croydon Airport in London. He came up with the idea for Mayday because it sounded like the French word m'aider, which means help me. Sometimes a Mayday distress call is sent by one vessel on behalf of another in danger. That's known as the Mayday Relay. If the vessel in danger loses radio communication, the Mayday call is repeated, then it's relayed. But interestingly enough, here we are talking about Mayday. I got to be careful because it's not something to be taken lightly. In the United States, it's illegal to make a fake Mayday distress call. If you make a fake one, did you know just shouting Mayday, Mayday as a fake distress call can land you in jail for up to 6 years and subject you to a $250,000 fine, which would really make you go Mayday, Mayday, wouldn't it? If that's what they did. For situations that are less than life-threatening, you know what you're supposed to say? You're not supposed. I never knew this. You're not supposed to say Mayday. You're supposed to say pan, which comes from the French word panne, which means breakdown, and can be used to signal an urgent situation involving a mechanical or medical issue that is not life-threatening. I never knew that. So you shouldn't say Mayday unless your life is threatened. If your life isn't threatened, you say pan. Another signal is sécurité, which means safety. Sécurité is often used to convey a message about safety, such as bad weather or navigation hazards. And like Mayday, you're supposed to repeat it 3 times to avoid confusion. So in other words, you're instructed to say it 3 times so it won't be confusing. So you go Mayday, 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 which is why you always saw that in the movie. So it had nothing to do with this being, Mayday had nothing to do with May the 1st. It was because it sounded like a French word that means help me. It had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that it's May the 1st. However, there are some interesting things that relates to May the 1st, the special day. And I want to thank my pal Tom Haley back in Indianapolis that sent this along because this is part of, he subscribes to something from the Prairie Home Companion, and it sends something out on every day, and it tells us about what today is. So beginning in 3rd century BC in Rome, there was a festival Floralia. It was to honor the goddess Flora, and it was held around the 1st of May. She was the goddess of flowers and fertility. So the festival was held to please her so that she protected flowers and blossoming plants. According to this report, there were circus and theater performances, naked dancers, and a sacrifice to the goddess. Probably a popular festival. Deers and goats were let loose to symbolize fertility, and beans were scattered for the same reason. You know, I don't know about you, but when beans are in my house, it is a prevention for any kind of fertility rites that might be going on. In the Celtic British Isles, May Day was celebrated as well, but Bel was the Celtic god of lights. It was called the Festival of Beltane, and it was in around May 1st. The sun's beginning to set later. Earth and animals were fertile. The festival lasted from sundown the night before to sundown on the 1st of May. On the eve of the festival, people lit bonfires and then jumped over them to purify themselves, which has been updated by Tony Robbins and his seminars. There were lots of flowers. Men walked around the fires, and then they set up May trees at this festival. Now, you may wonder what that has to do. That's where the maypole came from, were the trees that were set up in these festivals. And the maypole was seen as a symbol to promote fertility. So villages would compete with each other to see who could produce the tallest maypole. Young couples went off into the forest to spend the night together and came back the next day with flowers to spread through the village. I am not making this up. I'm reading from the Prairie Home Companion thing. A young woman was crowned the May Queen, and after her crowning, she would then ride naked on horseback through the village. I'm not making that up. I just picture, all these moms that want their daughters to participate in beauty pageants. And can you imagine back then? And if you win the pageant, you get to ride naked on horseback through town so that everybody in the city can see you. I can't imagine too many dads being excited about them winning that. Well, anyway, the important thing for us here is that Puritans were not pleased since so many young women went off in the woods and came back pregnant. So in this country and in parts of England, and then as the Puritans brought that to the United States, the maypole was made illegal in 1644. So since the Puritans discouraged May Day, it was never a major holiday in America. So a little bit, get a little spicy there, racy, right, Ted? I'm just reading it off the site, but isn't it amazing? Just some of the crazy things in history is absolutely amazing, and we get so caught up in what we're dealing with right now that isn't it amazing when you think about the fights that Puritans had on this very day, 400 years ago, protesting a tree that people ran around. It's just amazing. So we would have been yelling pan for the last couple of months, right, Charles? Crazy, just crazy. So yeah, exactly, Bruce. Beetlejuice. You got to say it 3 times for anything to come true. Absolutely. Sounds far more complicated than say, Houston, we have a problem. You're planting flowers, Sheila. Well, we'll look forward to hearing how your garden is growing. That's for sure. So I guess part of why I'm bringing this up is because when we look at some of the things of the past, first of all, there's 2 lessons that we can learn from what we've talked about today that I think are really, really important. First off, this too shall pass. When there were problems with whether it was the celebrations in the ancient Roman culture or celebrations in the ancient Celtic culture, the fact is they were considered to be significant and major problems at that time. And guess what? We made it through it. We made it through. And as serious and it is, I'm not, please don't misunderstand me. I'm certainly not belittling that. I'm certainly not glossing over that. But as serious as these challenges and these problems are, this will surely pass as much as the Puritans keeping everybody home on May the 1st. This is this much of our personal history, and it's about that much of the history of the world. I mean, think about it. No matter how many months that you have been sequestered, no matter how many months that you've been participating in this, if you take how old you are times 12, come up with the total number of months in your life, and then look at one side of the total number of months in your life and the other side at how many months we've been doing this, it's a fraction. Now, look, that doesn't negate the fact that it has been challenging, and it doesn't eliminate the financial pressures and constraints that we are going through. And as has been said here before, because of that, we're not all in the same boat, but we certainly are all in the same storm. And some people are getting through this storm in yachts, and it's a rough sea, bumps them around, but they're still in a yacht. Others of us are in a little rowboat trying to, an aluminum thing we bought at Bass Pro Shop that we're trying to fight through. I get it. It's different. But nonetheless, this too is going to pass. This storm shall pass, just as those things that I am certain seem so important and vital and critical to them back in that time are overwhelming us right now, right? It's going to pass. And we have to keep reminding each other of that to make certain, I keep seeing the things about the challenges in mental health and how this is placing pressures on families and communication. And I have no doubt that that's true. One way, for some a major way, for others a minor way, but one way that we can do battle against it is just simply things like this, just getting on here and connecting and listening and hearing positive messages. And there's positive messages that you can access that are all around you. The question is, will you do it? I think about when I'm giving speeches, and I can't wait for that to come back, right? But when I'm giving speeches, one of the things that always occurs to me is that in most situations, the difference between where we start and where we end up, and if we are successful in that in between, it's not based on how much we know. It's based on how much do we do. I don't think there is a significant knowledge gap. I think there is a significant do gap, right? I think there is a significant gap between what we know and what we put into practice. And so the fundamental question for all of us is going to be, are we going to bridge that do gap, that gap between what we know is important and what we know that we can do, and then what we'll actually execute? So all the information that you need is available. All the motivation that you need is out there and it's available. And all the support that you need, as we see here every day on this program, all of that is available to us. The question is not, do you need to know more? Do you need to do more? And also, Charles, you make a great point. Do we care more? There has been an empathy gap that's gone on, without doubt. That's a great way to put it. It's an empathy gap in terms of how do we really care for other people as they go through this process. It's funny you mentioned that, Charles, because as you know, I mentioned yesterday, I have to have my book turned in by end of business today, and I'm almost done with the last revisions. But one of the things I talk about in the book is that we need customer empathy. And that's different than sympathy. It's not that I'm feeling sorry for you. It's that I will make the effort to put myself in your shoes. And when I do that, when I'm willing to walk a mile in your shoes, when I'm willing to, think about what you do and care about what you do and try to perceive myself in your situation, then I'm better able to make better things happen. And that's what we've got to get to. That's absolutely what we have to get to. So I think the first thing that we learn from this is that, this too shall pass. This will pass, just as all of those problems and all those situations and all those rituals and all those things that they were doing back then didn't last. And we need those positive thoughts. Thanks, Talene. I appreciate that. We share those with each other. We need those positive thoughts. Okay, so here's the second thing we should take to it. When I heard the call, Mayday, Mayday, man, I assumed that what was happening was it was based on this, maybe some big accident, a ship sank or something happened on Mayday, and that's why it became the slogan, Mayday, Mayday. You're right. I thought maybe that was it. Absolutely wrong. Sometimes things aren't what you think. And I think so many of us, and I see this on social media all the time, there are people ready to jump to these incredible conclusions about what is happening in the world today. And all we need to do is just tap the brakes and get through this and get going on with our lives. As was said here, it looks like, Indiana's going through a process to reopen on July the 4th. Whatever the schedule is, whatever it is that's happening, let's just tap the brakes a little. Let's show some empathy and understand sometimes things aren't what they seem. Yeah, a good friend in sales says prospects don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That is absolutely the case. So that's what we have to do. We have to focus on that. We have to be willing and be committed to do all that we can, as much as we can, and understand that, there are certain things that may not be what they first appear. I am always amazed how many people are willing to jump to the worst possible explanation. Aren't you? I mean, people that really, they cannot wait to jump to the worst possible assumption about people, about situations, about it, but yet they want everybody to believe the best about them. I don't have the quote exactly right. And I'm not trying to be political about this, but I find it somewhat ironic that the best quote about this comes from former President George W. Bush, who really wasn't known a lot for his eloquence, but this is really good. He said, "Isn't it something that we want to judge other people by their worst moments, but we want people to judge us by our best intentions?" And I may be off a word or two there, but man, I love that quote. We want to judge other people by their worst moments, and we want people to judge us by our best intentions. And so I think part of what we need to understand from this is that often things aren't what they seem. And sometimes we need to look a little deeper and we need to believe a little better and judge others in a similar manner to what we would want them to judge us. Somewhere it was written, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." We've called that the golden rule for a long time. My great pal Tony Alessandra has a little side approach to that. He calls it the platinum rule, and the platinum rule follows the spirit of the golden rule. It does, but what it says is this: the platinum rule is do unto others the way they want to be done unto. Isn't that brilliant thinking? I just think that's brilliant thinking, because what it's saying is, if you say do unto others as you would have them do unto you, then what that means is I'm going to treat you the way I want to be treated. And we've been around enough to know that not everybody wants to be treated the way you want to be treated, right? I know not everybody out there wants to be treated like I want to be treated. So what the platinum rule says is that I'm going to treat you the way you want to be treated. I'm going to learn about you, and I'm going to care about you, and I'm going to suggest to you that the way I'm going to try to approach you and deal with you and engage with you is based on you, not me. So that's where we're getting to as well, is that if we can think better and treat people better and have more empathy and really approach that in a different manner, then it's going to help us all get through this. Charles says, I listened to a fellow yesterday who answered in a response to a question about people losing their jobs. Coley said they could move to one of the other 49 states. Oh, good grief. Isn't that something? But yet if somebody told that person that about that job, right? If someone told him that about his job, he'd be upset. It's beyond me how people can say things to others that if they turn it around, that it would upset them so much if it was said to them. It's just absolutely crazy. Yeah. Phil says, I've never seen a statue erected to the critic. Yeah, but to the people who've been criticized, many statues go up. When you're out front, the only thing I can see is your behind, and it better not be your best side. That's really good, Phil. That's true. It's funny. Some of you in Indiana and in the Louisville area remember for many years I did movie reviews, right? That was for over a decade. I got a chance to review movies, and it was seen on first on WHAS TV in Louisville. They were syndicated all over the country, 100 different stations, some in Canada, some in Australia, but mainly in the United States. And I always insisted that I was called a movie reviewer, not a movie critic. And a lot of people didn't understand why. But to me, if I gave something a review, I was just reviewing what I thought about it, right? I could go in the movie and I'm just going to tell you what I think about it. If my job is to be a critic, then you enter with a totally different mindset. You enter to criticize, to critique, to look at the film and think about what's wrong with it instead of really, really being open to what's right with it. Or what did I think about it, regardless of, I didn't want to go in to be a critic. I just wanted to go in to review and tell you what I thought about it. And what happened was, thank you, Ann, for remembering that. I appreciate that. what happened was I would go into a movie, and after they've been on television for a while, and people kind of recognize me. There were some people that came up and go, "Man, I do exactly what you say. If you say see it, I go see it. If you say wait for it to come out on video, I do that. If you say don't go see it, I do exactly what you say because we think." Then I had other people come up and say, "I watch you every week, and I do exactly the opposite of what you say," and that was simply because our tastes were different. I didn't mind that in the least, right? Do unto others the way they want to be done unto, whatever they want. That's absolutely great. But the critic would go in to analyze what's wrong. And we have people, Phil's comment about, they don't build statues to critics is so true. It's about, unless you're in the arena, I don't think you have a right to criticize that much. I don't think you have a right to really, go too much on the critical route. So the thing that I think we need to focus on is that this is going to pass. I know it's, for some of us, another couple weeks been added. We're not going to get out till May. Indiana is just saying we're not going to be 100% till the 4th of July, which in a way seems so far away. It's only 60 or so days. We're all right. We're going to get through this. It's about this much. It's about this much of our lives. And it's just a pinhead in total history. We can do this. And we're going to make it through this, and we're going to do it together. This too shall pass. Things are often not what they seem. So let's just be nice. Let's just tap the brakes. Let's be positive, and we can make some good things happen for one another. And I appreciate you being here because, man, that makes a good thing happen for me every day. I appreciate so much that you would spend the time here again. I will be back on again tomorrow. We've had a lot of folks watching on Instagram today, more than usual. So thank you for our Instagram viewers. And by the way, I didn't mention it. I keep forgetting to mention it. Most of our viewers on this, by the way, watch on the replay. So it'd mean a lot if you would share it on your Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, wherever you're watching. If you would share this, that would really, really be cool because that helps us build and grow the audience, which is something obviously that we would really love to do. So thank you so much for being here. I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow. Be right back at noon East or noon Pacific and 3 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. See you then. All right, Instagrammers, that does it.